The Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 is probably one of the most interesting devices in the smartphone market in 2025 or 2026 now. This is because the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 is two devices in one, technically. It's a phone that opens into a tablet and/or a tablet that closes into a phone. But even though the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 is unique in the fact that it has two different form factors in one device, the trickiest thing about the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 is not the fact that it folds, but more so along the lines of finding a case that's going to support the phone's folding factors while still allowing you, the person who's going to be using the phone, to experience the phone the way the Samsung engineers designed it to feel. That's where ultra-thin cases come into play for these folding phones. In today's video, we're going to be reviewing the Aramid ArmorAir case for the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 from Benks. So full disclosure, Benks did send me this case for me to review, but to be honest with you, I have full creative production value of this case, meaning even though we're collaborating, my opinion is my own, and Benks allows me to have full creative control for my review of their case. So let's go ahead and get the elephant out of the room and let's talk about the price of this Benks ArmorAir case for the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. So first and foremost, if you have a Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, you're going to have had thrown down at least $1,900 USD in order to put your hands on this device. And so the device itself is expensive, but you should automatically assume that the cases are going to be expensive as well. And that statement is going to stand true for this Benks case. On Amazon as well as on their website, this case is being sold for $89.99 USD, which is not cheap by any means. And honestly, it's kind of interesting because I've never seen another manufacturer, another case manufacturer do this, but you can either buy just the front bumper plate or you could purchase the back plate for this case, or you can have a combo. So basically a pretty comprehensive and a traditional case if you buy the combo. But I do find it a little bit interesting that they gave their consumers the ability to choose how they want to protect their phone. The sample product that I received from Benks is going to be the combo version. I don't know how you budget things to purchase cases for your phone, but honestly, if Benks didn't send me a free sample product to review for you, I probably would not have purchased this case in and of itself just based off of its monetary output from my wallet. Now that we've spoken about the price, that's probably the worst thing about this case because everything gets better from there. So this case is made out of Kevlar, and I kind of got to thinking, what's the difference between Kevlar and what's the difference between Aramid fiber? I think based off of my Google fooing that they're basically the same thing. One just sounds a little bit cooler and one sounds a little bit more modern. If you know the kind of definitive difference between the two, make sure you drop a comment down below because Derek would like to know. With the fact that this case is made out of Kevlar, there's two things that I want to call your attention to, and one of them is going to be the fact that it does give a little bit more gripability to your very thin and very lightweight and very expensive Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7. And the other detail about this Kevlar material is the fact that it's ultra thin, it doesn't really weigh too much, and then it actually does provide nominal protection to your phone for wear and tear situations. I will have to say that I have dropped my phone while this case is on, and the phone in and of itself survived. It did a really good job, but I wouldn't recommend an unscheduled and an unwarranted impact durability test for your expensive case and your expensive phone. Because of the folding nature and the design of the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, a lot of the cases, be that thin or thick, you're actually going to have some type of adhesives inside of the case. And that's not going to be any different with this Benks case. Once you pull this case out of the box and the packaging, you'll find that the back plate does have some adhesives on the back side, also has some adhesives on the bumper plate, and the hinge doesn't have any adhesives. So this case kind of combines two different worlds. It sort of combines like an ultra thin case with a more durable and protective case, and they kind of just had a baby. And so this comes into play because this case again is super ultra thin. I think when it is on your actual Z Fold 7, it comes comes in at around 250 grams, and that is actually super light. The phone and the case married together are actually still lighter than most iPhones on the market, as well as some of the Samsung phones on the market. So I actually looked at this phone and I was thinking to myself, I've never really been a big hinge protection person. I always felt like the hinges were always so bulky and it just made the phone really just not really comfortable to hold. And that's still kind of true with this Benks case, but because the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 is so lightweight and thin, it actually gives the appearance and the feeling as if you're holding a normal aspect ratio phone. So if you're not familiar, the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 has a little bit more of a narrow outer screen. Because of the extra kind of width for the hinge, it actually just makes you feel like you're holding a normal slab phone, which is a good thing and a bad thing, because I do love that sleek and sexy thinness of the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7, but whenever I do feel that kind of leathery hinge material on the phone, it actually feels like I'm holding a S25 Ultra, which I really love. So the hinge plus kind of the corners and design of the case still allows for this phone to be easily one-handed, and then also just feels really good in the hand. So now a little bit more about the hinge on this phone is the fact that it is spring-loaded. You can actually see that it goes like this and it opens and closes just like that. And that's cool, right? But it's actually a little bit more cooler than you would expect, because I found out by trial and error that this little blue portion, the hinge portion of your Z Fold 7, is actually magnetic. And so Benks capitalized on the fact that the hinge on the Z Fold 7 is magnetic, and thereby they made the hinge protection area magnetic as well. So if you actually take a magnet and you attach that magnet to the actual hinge portion of this Benks case, the magnet is gonna stick. So again, Benks played their cards right and they put a magnet in the actual hinge protector, so that way when the hinge does close, it magnetically closes to the hinge on the Z Fold 7. And that's just amazing engineering in my personal opinion, because Benks saw an opportunity and they took it. For the rest of the case, everything else is pretty standard. At the bottom of the case, you get a cutout for the speaker, the USB-C, as well as the two mics. Flipping it onto the top, you then get a cutout for your speaker, and then again, two mics. And then flipping it onto the right side, you can then see a actual larger cutout for the volume rocker, as well as a power button / fingerprint reader. On the back side of the case, you kind of get like this armor grid, kind of like a parallax, maybe like a digital camo design. This design is actually pretty dope, because if you're looking at a certain angle, you'll see kind of like more grays or bluishes or blacks. But if you look at a different angle, you might actually see a little bit of a different design. And it's just really cool. It's kind of like a parallax, if you will. And again, it does feel really good. It doesn't add like a ton of super rubbery grips or anything like that. It doesn't have like a ton of texture, but the texture that it does have allows you to really have a little bit more of ease of mind for holding and gripping your phone when you're out and about. So I almost missed one of the most biggest details of this case, and that's going to be that huge camera module on the back. So we all know that the camera hump on the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 is ridiculous, and unfortunately the case can't really do anything about that. So the case does have a rather large poke here for the back end of the phone. You can see that it does have the Kevlar kind of rising up all the way to this metal kind of ring around the cameras. And so if you are wondering, I think it's pretty self-explanatory, but this case is gonna wobble whenever you put it down on a flat surface, because again, Samsung decided to make everything on this phone thin and sleek except for the cameras, so okay. However, whenever you open the phone up, you actually then have this little lump where the hinge protection rests on the outer screen. And this is good because when you actually look at it from the kind of bottom there, the hinge protection is almost as thick as the camera hump. So that means if you are going to open up your phone and then lay it down on the desk, it no longer wobbles, which is a massive win for me because I cannot stand whenever the phone wobbles on the desk. Another perk of this hinge protector piece is the fact that, again, when it's opened, it kind of gives you a little bit of grip like this. So that way, if you're holding your phone like this, you can kind of rest your fingers on the actual hinge area, and it sort of gives you a little bit more gripability when your phone is in tablet mode. This case is made out of Kevlar, and it is going to protect your phone from nominal drops. I definitely would not do a durability test with this, and it's definitely not going to save your phone if you just so happen to run over with your bike or your car or whatever. Don't act like those situations don't happen. These manufacturers offer insurance on their phones for a reason. And let's be real, people like me are the epitome of clumsy. But I digress. This case again is going to protect your phone from nominal drops, and it's also really meant to protect from more wear and tear type situations. So if you're one of those people who's in a rush and you just kind of throw your phone in your purse or your book bag, your gym bag, whatever. But again, this case will protect your phone, but still be a little bit gentle with it. So another feature that this case does offer, but I personally don't ever use, is going to be the fact that it is MagSafe compatible. So in the back plate of this case, you then get a MagSafe magnet, and then that means you're able to attach your MagSafe wallets, your MagSafe batteries, your desk MagSafe phone charger. So one of the things about this is the fact that I don't feel like the magnet on this case is very strong. I did kind of like test it and wiggle this a lot during testing, and I found that the phone would drop quite often because I don't know, I feel like the magnets back here as well as the magnets in the MagSafe, it's there, it's just not very strong. So if you're one of those people that likes to use your MagSafe wallets or maybe like a pop socket or whatever, or maybe a ring kickstand, you can use it, but you should be cognizant about the fact that it's not a very strong magnet, at least not in my experience in testing. So overall, I do really enjoy and like this case. I like the way it feels with this extra hinge protection section. It sort of gives off that feeling as if you're holding a normal slab smartphone, again, like an iPhone or a Samsung Galaxy S series phone, which is just something that I really like. It's just much more comfortable. I do like the fact that the hinge protection area does cover the hinge, but there is a huge caveat with this hinge protector, and that's the fact that this hinge protector is actually going to capture a lot of dust and debris within this area. So just kind of like in the normal daily activity, you put your phone in your pocket, your purse, whatever, and then you take your phone out and then you place it on the couch, the floor, the table, wherever. If you're opening up your Z Fold 7, this is actually going to allow for dust and debris to get in because the hinge does have a little bit of give. And so whenever there is dust and debris that gets into the hinge while the Z Fold 7 is open, and then you close it like this, because the hinge is magnetized, it then traps all of that debris and dust and whatever it is in that section. And again, that's the caveat, is the fact that this hinge protection feature is actually potentially feeding and forcing dirt and debris into the hinge when you close your phone, and then the hinge protector actually closes on the hinge itself. And so if you do purchase this case, you do have to be mindful about the fact of regularly cleaning out the gunk and the debris and the dust that collects between your actual phone hinge and the hinge protector. Because again, if you have, let's say, sand or whatever it is, and the sand gets stuck inside this area and then the hinge closes up like that, the hinge protector is basically forcing all of that dirt and debris into your phone's hinge. It's really weird because it's a double-edged sword, because it does protect your phone, but if not used appropriately and or if it's not cleaned regularly, it can then actually hurt your phone. And as far as concerns and caveats are for this case, there's only two. One, again, is what we mentioned before, is the price. It's an expensive phone. And the second is going to be that hinge protection area kind of feeding dirt or forcing dirt into the hinge of your phone if you don't keep it clean regularly. All in all, I think if you were more cognizant about that hinge protection area and you're able to fork out the $89, you're then going to have a really wonderful Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 7 case. I do want to thank Benks for sending me out a sample product for review. I think it's probably one of my favorite cases. It is in competition with other cases like Thinborn and Pitaka, but neither the Thinborn or the Pitaka case actually have that hinge protection, which is, again, a good and a bad thing. All right, everybody, if you found this this video helpful in any way, shape, or form, make sure you hit like and subscribe down below. Let me know what case you're using in the comments. The YouTube algorithm thinks you're going to enjoy this video right here, but I think you might actually enjoy this video right here. Or you could do me a solid and watch both. Again, my name is Derek from Directions, and I'll see you in the next one.